Jessica, we're restructuring the company, you're the first to go, said Karen, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. She smiled. That smile, it was a scalpel cloaked in silk. Effective immediately. The fluorescent lights in the conference room flickered and hummed, amplifying the silence that followed her words. The air felt thick, metallic, poisoned by the cold finality of her voice. I didn't move. Not right away. My body sat frozen in that padded leather chair, but my mind recoiled, scrambling for meaning. Around the table, my colleagues suddenly discovered the urgent need to examine their shoes, their notes, their own cowardice. No one looked at me. So this was how it ended. 14 years. 14 years of unwavering loyalty, late nights, missed birthdays, meticulous reports, crisis management, and client hand-holding, erased with a single sentence. My name is Jessica. I'm 46. Or at least I was this morning. Until that moment, I was senior account manager at the Bogotá branch of Grupo Empresarial Alta Vida. Now? Now I'm just a name on a spreadsheet Monica deleted without blinking. For over a decade, I held the line with our most vital corporate clients, SolarTech, Grandstone, Bioenginex. I wasn't flashy. I didn't play the social game or flatter upward. But I was trusted. I delivered. My work spoke for itself. That was never enough for someone like Karen. From the moment she strutted into the department 6 months ago, perfume of arrogance trailing behind her, I sensed the storm. She was the type who mistook noise for leadership, upheaval for innovation. Her brand of vision came with a wrecking ball attached. She came in guns blazing, scheduling endless meetings full of buzzwords and half-digested strategy. Reinvention, she called it. We need to disrupt the complacency. She didn't see strong client bonds as achievements, she saw them as threats. Some of these relationships are too cozy, she said once, eyeing me. We need a more professional detachment. I clenched my jaw. Swallowed the urge to respond. I'd learned long ago that challenging someone like her only made them dig deeper into their vendettas. What she failed to grasp, what she couldn't grasp, was that real client loyalty isn't built on contracts or quarterly reports. It's built in hospital waiting rooms, in midnight calls, in quiet trust forged over years. Matthew from SolarTech didn't call me directly to cut corners. He called because I'd helped save his company's reputation after a botched launch. He called because I answered when it mattered. But to Karen, that kind of loyalty smelled like insubordination. So she stalked me. Closely. She questioned every line of my expense reports, scrutinized client lunches as if they were secret deals, barged into calls that had never required her interference. And always, those smug remarks during team meetings, "We're not in the 90s anymore," she'd say, casting me a sidelong glance. Some of us are still adapting. Today, she pulled the trigger she'd been polishing for months. And she thought it was over. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that this wasn't the end of my story. It was only the prologue. Because there are wounds that don't heal with time. There is humiliation that doesn't fade. And there is a reckoning that waits, patient and silent, until the day it can speak. She thought I'd walk away quietly. But Karen has never been good at reading people. Especially not the kind of woman who's been burned before. 14 years ago, I crawled out of a shattered marriage with 2 kids and no compass. This company, this job, had been my redemption. Daniel, my first manager, saw something in me that others overlooked. Jessica, he'd said, I can train skills, not heart. You've got the heart. I never let him down. Through layoffs, mergers, and sleepless years, I protected this company like it was my own. Built relationships that were more than business, they were lifelines. When Anthony of Grandstone called crying at midnight because his father was dying in San Juan, I was the one who answered. Not because I had to. Because it mattered. But none of that matters now. What matters is that Karen thinks she's finished me. She doesn't know that she's merely woken something up, something old, buried deep under years of loyalty and silence. I don't want compensation. I don't want apologies. I want her to feel it. Slowly. I want her to taste the bitterness she fed me today. Not in one dramatic blow, but piece by piece. I'm not here for justice. I'm here for revenge. And I'm very, very patient. When Anthony needed help reorganizing deliveries so he could spend time with his dying father, it was me who made the calls, shuffled the calendars, and got it done, quietly, without fuss. When Emily from Mercadio Esmeralda scrambled to launch a new division, I stayed late, worked weekends, missed my son's recital, because she needed me. And when Stephen from Desarrollo Nexus beamed with pride at his daughter's graduation, I was the only one at that quarterly review who remembered to ask about it. These weren't clients. They were human stories stitched into the fabric of my daily life. Connections forged not through sales targets, but through late-night emails, whispered worries, and mutual respect. My clients didn't choose Grupo Empresarial Altavita for the price points on a slide deck. They stayed because they knew that when they reached out, they wouldn't get a rotating intern or an automated script, they'd get me. Someone who remembered their last crisis, their daughter's name, their sleepless nights. Someone who cared. But to Karen, that was unprofessional. Inappropriate. Dangerous. 3 weeks before the axe fell, she pulled me aside after yet another one of her insufferable strategy meetings. Her voice was low, cold, and dressed in fake concern. Jessica, clients pay for results, not for friendship. Her eyes lingered on mine like a warning. I think you're too emotionally entangled in these relationships. I smiled. Tight. And bit my tongue so hard I tasted metal. Looking back, I see it clearly now. That wasn't feedback. That was ammunition. Karen was building her little case, carefully, deliberately. My empathy had become her evidence. She wasn't just eliminating a colleague. She was staging an execution. The irony was grotesque. Under my leadership, our department had become the company's strongest performer. We had a 94% retention rate. Our clients weren't just loyal, they were expanding. Contract values had climbed over 30% in 3 years. Satisfaction scores outpaced every competitor. But Karen didn't care about results. She wanted submission. Then came the final straw. It was a Wednesday morning. Just another routine review with Emily, nothing unusual. She'd called me, like always, to flag a hiccup in a delivery schedule. We'd handled dozens of these before. But 5 minutes in, Karen barged in uninvited. Emily, this is Karen, Jessica's supervisor, she cut in, her voice honeyed with poison. I just want to ensure your concerns are addressed at the proper management level. Translation, you're no longer talking to your trusted partner, you're dealing with the regime now. The air went brittle. Emily's tone cooled, her comfort vanished. A conversation that should have been collaborative turned brittle and clipped. After the call, Emily sent me an email I still have saved in a special folder, my archive of unfinished business. Jessica. I've worked with you for 8 years. I've never felt like a problem to be managed until today. If this is the new face of Grupo Empresarial Altavita, we'll need to reassess our future together. I forwarded it to Karen, naively thinking it might show her the collateral damage of her power games. Her response? She summoned me into her office, closed the door, and leveled her gaze like a loaded gun. You're undermining my authority, she said. Encouraging clients to question leadership? That borders on insubordination. That was when it hit me, not like a revelation, but like a punch I should have seen coming. It didn't matter how calmly I navigated her chaos. It didn't matter how much I bent, softened, adjusted. I had already been sentenced. When the restructuring was finally announced, it landed not like a shock, but like the click of a lock turning in a door long shut. It wasn't relief. Not really. But it was the end of limbo. She had found her excuse. We're streamlining operations, she told the team, her voice lacquered with false sincerity. Jessica's role, while historically valuable, no longer aligns with our strategic direction. I watched their faces, my team, my people. Some blinked. Others winced. No one spoke. They knew. And Karen smiled again. That same self-satisfied twist of the lips that had become her signature. A smile that said, I've won. But she hadn't. She mistook silence for defeat. She mistook dignity for surrender. What she didn't know, what she still doesn't, is that this isn't over. Not for her. Not for me. This is not the closure she thinks it is. This is the spark. The campaign begins not with noise, but with quiet. A cold resolve. Not to return. Not to explain. But to let the scales tip. She opened a wound that won't scab over. And I have nothing left to lose. That afternoon, as I packed the remnants of 14 years into a cardboard box, the office shifted around me, hushed voices, quick glances, awkward movements. Then came the first voice. "This is insane," Matthew whispered, leaning in with a glance over his shoulder. "You're the spine of this department. What the hell are they thinking?" I gave him a soft, measured smile. The kind of smile that says thank you and goodbye in one breath. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I had learned long ago that torching bridges only lights your own path in flames. Let them keep their clean desks, their hollow promotions. Karen believed she had silenced me. What she didn't understand, what she could never understand, was that by cutting me loose, she had pulled a thread that held everything together. She thought I was just one employee. But I was the invisible architecture behind the firm's most loyal alliances. That evening, I sat alone on the porch of my apartment, a glass of wine in my hand, watching the Bogota sky melt into fire and dusk. For the first time in months, I wasn't clenching my jaw. The tension of navigating Monica's minefield of egos and veiled hostility had evaporated. In its place, quiet. Strange, unwelcome, but undeniably liberating. My phone buzzed on the table next to me. Then again. Then again. Messages from colleagues, shocked and angry, filled the screen, outrage disguised as consolation. I muted it. I needed silence to think. To plan. But by Tuesday morning, the storm had arrived. 17 missed calls. 43 text messages. 67 emails. My heart lurched. I thought something had happened to my children. But no. It was something else entirely. The world I had built was beginning to unravel, without me. The first voicemail came from Anthony. His voice, usually warm and measured, was taut with restrained fury. "Jessica, I just heard what happened. This is unacceptable. I've been calling your office since yesterday, no one knows a damn thing about our delivery timelines. I need to talk to you. Today." Then Emily. Her voice, unmistakably sharp and wounded. "They dismissed you without speaking to us first? We have 3 critical projects underway, and you're the only person who knows the scope, the expectations, the client-side integrations. I've left 4 messages and it seems they haven't even bothered to assign anyone new. This is a disaster." Each message carried the same pulse, panic. Not over a contract. Over an absence. They didn't just lose a liaison, they lost a confidant, a strategist, a quiet partner in their survival. I stood in the kitchen, coffee brewing behind me, phone in hand, listening to each voice crystallize the damage Karen had done. Then came Matthew. No preamble. Just fury laced with disbelief. "Jessica, if they think they can just cut you loose and drop someone new into this without destroying everything we've built, they've lost their minds. Call me. We need to talk." I returned the calls, one by one, steadying my voice, taking notes, reconnecting the frayed threads. But what struck me wasn't just the loyalty, it was the betrayal they felt. Not mine. The company's. To them, my dismissal wasn't just a bad decision. It was a violation. A slap in the face of every trust-filled conversation, every moment of vulnerability they'd shared over the years. "Jessica," Emily said when we finally spoke. "Let me be clear. When we signed with Grupo Altavita, it wasn't just the pricing. It was you. You cared. You made us feel like we mattered. Without you? I don't know if we'll keep our partnership. What's the point of staying where we're not seen?" Then Stephen. Always blunt. Always honest. "I've worked in this industry for 25 years. I've dealt with suppliers who treated us like invoice numbers. You never did. You remembered names. You remembered deadlines without reminders. You showed up. Hell, Jessica, you listened." He paused. I could hear him tapping a pen against his desk. You're the reason we stuck around during the price hikes last quarter. If you're out, I don't see any value in staying." Their words weren't just comforting. They were fuel. They confirmed what I already knew. Karen hadn't just removed a team member, she had detonated the foundation. And now, those tremors were reaching her office walls. The truth is, I didn't need to lift a finger in revenge. Not yet. The retribution had already begun, echoing in the voicemails, bleeding through the inbox, tightening around the hollow corridors she thought she controlled. She had mistaken silence for surrender. But this silence? It was the calm before a reckoning. She thought she'd finished me. She didn't realize. She had just triggered a chain reaction of her own undoing. And I wasn't going to stop it. I was going to enjoy it. There are things that can't be replicated by simply reassigning tasks. By noon on Tuesday, I had spoken with all 5 of my top-tier clients, and the verdict was unanimous. Their allegiance had never been to the company. It had always been to me. Some were direct: "If you move to another firm, we'll follow." Others were more measured, but the subtext was clear: Grupo Altavita no longer held their trust. I did. That was the moment I understood just how spectacularly Karen had miscalculated. In her quest to purge the department of perceived threats to her control, she had confused process with power. She had assumed I was replaceable, as if relationships cultivated over years could be downloaded into a CRM. She never understood our industry. She never understood that in this world, loyalty is earned in crisis, not codified in policy. Trust is slow to build and quick to shatter, and she had shattered it with the cold swing of a bureaucrat's axe. Wednesday morning, the first official aftershock arrived. I was halfway through breakfast when my phone rang. It was Emily. Her tone had shifted, no longer warm, but cool, precise. "Jessica, I'm informing you that this morning I'll be sending a formal letter to Grupo Altavita, requesting an urgent review of our contract." I paused, stunned mid-sip. "Emily, please. Don't jeopardize your business because of me." There was silence. Then her voice, firm and clear. "Jessica, this isn't about loyalty. It's about risk. We reviewed our agreement last night. There's a clause, just cause for termination if assigned personnel are changed without prior consent. We're invoking it." She wasn't angry. She was strategic. "We've got major projects next quarter. You know our operations inside and out. That kind of insight can't be handed off in a training binder. If Grupo Altavita wants to keep us, they'll need to reverse their decision, or offer us direct access to you through some form of consulting." An hour later, my phone rang again. "Matthew." His voice was sharper than usual. Measured, but tense. "I'd asked for a meeting with executive leadership," he said. "If they can't show me how deadlines and quality standards will be maintained without you, we're pulling out. My team's already contacted 3 of your competitors. We're not waiting." By Thursday, the situation had moved far beyond mere discontent. It was mutiny. Anthony didn't bother requesting a discussion. He sent a formal contract termination notice, 30 days notice unless the original service configuration, namely me, was reinstated. His letter didn't stop at the department. It went straight to the CEO, the legal department, and the board. Stephen chose another tactic. Rather than sever ties, he iced everything. Every open project, every pending order, frozen. More than $2 million in contracts put on hold pending a full audit of service capabilities and personnel. "Until we know what your team even is now," he told them, "we're not moving a peso." And then Friday came. And with it, the blow that landed like a final gavel strike. Emily didn't threaten. She acted. Her termination letter was clean, surgical, devastating. Due to material changes in account management personnel without prior consultation, Mercadio Esmeralda is exercising its right to terminate this agreement effective immediately. We are transferring our business to a provider that can offer the level of personalized service and institutional understanding our projects require. That same afternoon, the past came calling. I was not expecting the name that flashed on my screen. Daniel. My former mentor. The man who took a chance on me all those years ago, when I was newly divorced, desperate, untested, and who saw not my resume, but my resolve. "Jessica," he said, warm and direct, "I hope I'm not intruding, but Emily called me this morning." His voice carried that same calm wisdom I remembered, the kind that once steadied me through boardroom storms and midnight crises. But now, it carried something else, something sharper. She told me what happened. And she told me what she did. I stood silent, heartbeat drumming in my ears. "I want you to know," he continued, "you're not alone in this. People are paying attention. And some of us don't take betrayal lightly." Betrayal. The word settled into me like an anchor. It had a bitter edge, but a satisfying weight. Karen believed she had rid herself of a problem. What she didn't realize was that she had turned her back on the very network that sustained the company. And now, that network was retracting, contract by contract, thread by thread, cutting off her oxygen. She had thought firing me would be a clean cut. But it had only opened the first wound. And the bleeding had just begun. She wanted my opinion. Not just about what had gone wrong at Grupo Alta Vida, but about who might be able to deliver the level of service they had lost. And then, Daniel's voice dropped lower. "I told her the best supplier I could recommend was you, if you ever decided to go independent." I froze. The idea had never crossed my mind. Not seriously. I had always been too buried in quarterly targets, client fires, internal politics. But now, with the structure around me burned to ash, the notion felt less like a risk and more like an opening. I had the trust. I had the experience. And after surviving Karen's sabotage and walking away stronger, I had the confidence. All I lacked was the framework. And Emily? She made the first offer. "If you ever open your own firm," she told me, "Mercadio Esmeralda would be honored to be your first client." By Friday, 3 more of my former clients had echoed the same sentiment. What Karen had intended as exile was rapidly becoming a foundation. Not of revenge, but of reinvention. On Monday morning, I took a quiet detour. On my way to meet a corporate attorney, I pulled into the parking lot of the company I'd once called home. Not out of malice. Just curiosity. The signs of panic were immediate. Karen's car was already there, 7:30 a.m., flanked by those of senior management. Emergency meetings, no doubt. I didn't need to step inside to know the walls were closing in. Later that afternoon, Matthew called me. His voice crackled with disbelief and something like vindicated glee. "Jessica, you won't believe it. She's out." I said nothing. Let him fill the silence. "Monica called an emergency all-hands meeting this morning. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. The execs have been in crisis mode all weekend. It's worse than we thought. 2 more major clients requested immediate contract reviews. We're talking 60% of our revenue from key accounts at risk. All in under 2 weeks." He paused. Then added, almost laughing. "And guess what she did? Tried to pin it all on you. Claimed you had manipulated the clients out of spite. Said you crossed professional boundaries, made the relationships too personal." I raised an eyebrow, sipping my coffee. Classic. "But no one bought it," Matthew continued. "Bravo, yes," the Joshua asked point blank. "How did a department head not know how dependent our clients were on one person? How could she fire you without a transition plan?" She had no answers. So he asked her to resign. Effective immediately. I sat back. The weight of those words sank in slowly, like ink through paper. 2 weeks ago, I'd been dismissed with a smile. Now, the department head who signed my release was out of a job. And the CEO was asking for my number. "He wants a meeting," Matthew added. "To talk about bringing you back. With a promotion. And a serious pay bump." I thanked him for the call. And then, I smiled. Not out of revenge. Out of clarity. Because while they were trying to glue broken pieces back together, I was already building something better. The truth? It wasn't that I didn't want to go back. It was that there was no longer anything to return to. That same afternoon, I sat down with Emily and Stephen to finalize the birth of something new, Herrera Corporate Relations. Emily offered to fund the launch in exchange for priority service access. Stephen volunteered as a reference. By Wednesday, I had 4 signed contracts, each from clients who had once been Grupo Altavida's crown jewels. 2 more were waiting in the wings, vetting proposals. But the moment of quiet triumph came Thursday. My phone buzzed with an international number I recognized immediately. Matthew. I answered, and before he even spoke, I could hear the smile in his voice. Jessica, Matthew said, his voice calm but charged, I wanted to let you know, SolarTech is officially terminating its contract with Grupo Altavida next month. But more importantly. He paused, letting the moment breathe. We'd like to explore a different kind of collaboration with you. What he proposed was far beyond anything I'd anticipated. SolarTech wasn't merely interested in retaining me as a consultant. They were expanding, aggressively, and needed someone capable of managing complex supplier ecosystems across multiple markets. They didn't want me to advise. They wanted me to lead. We'd like to offer you the role of Vice President of Supplier Relations, Matthew said. Double your previous salary. Full autonomy. The position is yours, if you want it. But I wanted to give you the choice. I know you've started your own firm, and I respect that. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't scrambling to salvage what had been lost. I was being invited to shape what came next. I sat with the offer, let it settle. Both paths were strong. But only one felt like power reclaimed. On Tuesday morning, exactly 2 weeks after Karen's smug dismissal, I picked up the phone. Matthew, I said, I accept the position. On one condition, I'll keep my consulting firm open. I'll serve a limited roster of clients during evenings and weekends. He agreed without hesitation. He understood what Karen never did, that my relationships didn't compete with my work, they enhanced it. The news traveled like wildfire through Bogotá's business circles. By Thursday, I'd received a cascade of congratulatory calls, from allies, competitors, even strangers. 2 executives from firms that had never partnered with Grupo Altavida reached out to express admiration and interest. People weren't just hearing that the clients had walked away. They were realizing who they had followed. But the most poetic moment came on Friday afternoon. Joshua, CEO of Grupo Altavida, called me personally. Jessica, he said, I'd like to make one final proposal. We'd like to bring you back as department head, with full authority, a 40% salary increase, and an official apology from the board. It was a generous offer. On paper. But the moment had passed. The truth was clear now, etched into every call, every contract, every client who had chosen me over the company that once dismissed me like a replaceable part. Mr. Bravo, I said gently, I truly appreciate your call. But I've already accepted a new position, one that offers me both professional growth and, more importantly, genuine respect. I paused. I've learned something invaluable, my worth was never tied to the approval of any single company. He was gracious. The conversation was brief. There was nothing left to discuss. You don't rebuild what's already burned to the ground. That weekend, I received the news that quietly, irrevocably closed the chapter. Matthew from my old team called. Jessica, he said, Grupo Altavida just announced it's shutting down the Bogotá office. Everything's being consolidated in Medellín. The loss of our major accounts made local operations unsustainable. There was a silence. Then, I hope you know, we all saw what really happened. Karen destroyed in 2 weeks what took you 14 years to build. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel vengeance fulfilled. Just a calm, steady sense of vindication. My value had never been in the titles they gave, or took away. It was in the loyalty I earned. The bridges I built. The storm I endured. 6 months later, I stood in my new office at SolarTech, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows and a panoramic view of Bogotá's skyline. My title now read, Vice President of Strategic Alliances. The role had evolved. My responsibilities now stretched across multiple verticals, because as Matthew had predicted, my skill with relationships translated far beyond supplier management. I was now shaping international partnerships, guiding acquisitions, and steering multi-million-dollar deals. And Herrera Corporate Relations? It had grown into something much more than a stopgap. What started as a lifeboat had become a boutique firm, quietly gaining traction in the niche world of B2B relationship architecture. We weren't the biggest, but we didn't want to be. I was working closely with 2 companies and had turned down 6 others. Growth would come, but not at the expense of excellence. I refused to recreate the chaos I had escaped. Then, something unexpected happened. Emily reached out again. Emily had always believed in the power of relationships, and now she was putting that belief into action. She recommended me as a speaker, an opponent, ironically enough, in a regional business leadership conference. The topic? The strategic value of personal ties in professional contexts. I hesitated at first. Then I remembered how this all began, with someone who had treated relationships as liabilities. This was a chance to offer a counterpoint, not in confrontation, but in principle. The talk was received with enthusiasm that exceeded my expectations. What I thought would be a modest panel turned into a standing ovation and a stream of invitations to collaborate, speak, consult. A week later, Excelencia Empresarial, a prestigious Latin American business journal, reached out. They invited me to write a feature piece on the hidden power of authentic relationships in modern business. I accepted. The article poured out of me like something that had waited too long to be voiced. 2 weeks ago, a notification appeared on my LinkedIn, an unfamiliar message, but the name was unforgettable. Karen. She had resurfaced. A smaller company in Cali had hired her, and she wanted to congratulate me on my success. The message was polite, almost friendly, with a half-hearted attempt to clear up any misunderstandings from the past. I read it twice. Then deleted it. Some bridges, once scorched, are best left in ashes. Yesterday, I had lunch with Daniel, my old mentor, the man who gave me a chance when all I had was determination and a resume thin on results but rich in resolve. Over dessert, he looked at me with quiet pride. Jessica, he said, I followed your journey, step by step. You've proven something I've always believed, doing the right thing, even when it's ignored or dismissed, will always earn the respect of those who truly matter. Looking back, I saw it all clearly now. The morning Karen had flashed that cruel smile, believing she'd erased me with a signature, she had unknowingly given me something far more powerful than vengeance. She gave me freedom. She forced me to remember who I was outside of their system. She didn't destroy me. She revealed me. And perhaps that is the most enduring form of revenge, not in watching your enemies fall, but in building something so whole, so luminous, so resilient, that their betrayal dissolves into irrelevance. Sitting in my new office, watching the pulse of a company that valued my voice, my strategy, my humanity, I understood something profound. Closure doesn't always come with confrontation. Sometimes, it arrives quietly, with clarity, with peace, with success that needs no explanation. If this story has touched something in you, if it's reminded you of your own value, or the cost of integrity, or the quiet strength of starting over, I invite you to stay connected. Subscribe to my channel, where you'll find more real stories about life, business, and the art of navigating both with grace. Here, we don't just tell stories. We rebuild what others tried to break. And we grow, deliberately, fiercely, and together. Turn on notifications. Because the next chapter always begins when you least expect it.